to order. We'll have the order and pledge of allegiance, then we will go through our public hearing process for the annual town meeting warrant. Then we'll move on to our regular select board meeting items of recognition of visitors for items not on the agenda. We have reports of managers and financials. And under new business, we have 3 RFPs, 2 of which are to issue out, and 1 is results. Then our payables and any other business. So with that, if we could do the pledge of allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I have a motion to open our public hearing for annual town meeting warrant?
So moved.
Second. Thank you.
Who's second? Steve. John DeSantis.
Yes.
Stan Tetman.
Yes.
Steve Robinson.
Yes.
Marianne Hawks.
Yes.
Lisa Elby.
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, you have opened the public hearing for the annual town meeting warrant at 6:37 p.m.
So I think our process will be is to walk down through the warrant, article by article. As typically we have, the first couple of articles are municipal election and town meeting notice articles. The next articles, of which there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 articles, are legislative articles, basically comprehensive land use codes changes. And we do have Scott here this evening. Thank you, Scott, for coming and being able to describe or answer any questions related to those. And then the last articles, 11 through 22, are basically the town articles, mostly budgetary articles. And we'll go through those and answer any questions. So just if you've got questions, please raise your hand and we'll acknowledge you and answer any questions you have with everybody that's here. So without further ado, do I need to read Articles 1 and 2?
No.
Okay. So let's just move into Article 3, which is the first legislative article that says, shall the ordinance titled Code Comprehensive Land Use Code, Sections 1100, short title 1103, other codes adopted in conjunction with building code standards for the town of Poland, and 1204, adoption of the NFPA 1 fire code reference, and 1205, adoption of the NFPA Life Safety 101 by reference be amended. Do you want to say anything? I don't know if anybody wants to say anything related to that. Does anybody have any questions related to that particular article? If not, we can move on to number 4. Shall the ordinance entitled Poland Comprehensive Land Use Code, Section 506.2.k.3, General Purpose 1, permitted commercial, institutional, governmental, and other uses requiring a site plan review be amended. Any questions or comments related to that? I guess I have a question. Having not yet read the thing in detail myself, what are we actually changing about site plan review?
It's just the allowed use of transient campgrounds in, I think it was general purpose 2. General
Okay.
purpose 1, actually. Resident asked that it be changed to an allowed use so they could do a campground.
Okay,
Would have to go through planning board.
thanks, Scott. Thanks for that. No other questions? We'll move on to Article 5. Shall the ordinance titled Comprehensive Land Use Code, Section 506.2.a.1, Village 1, 506.2a.1, Village 2, and 506a.1, Village 3, and 506.2a.4, Village 4 be amended. And is that just clerical?
This is a state requirement now that we require mobile homes in any zone where single-family home is allowed. So we had some mobile homes were not allowed in some zones. dependent on, we have 3 definitions on mobile homes, basically pre-1976, everything from 76 up, and then modulars. So there were some zones where mobile homes weren't allowed. So per the state, we have to allow that.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
What was the explanation for that, Scott, do you know?
It just came down as a legislation issue that was approved, so it's another opportunity for more housing.
That was the reason I believe they passed it, is to be able to allow less expensive housing in certain areas where it's not allowed.
Article 6, so the ordinance entitled Poland Comprehensive Land Use Code, Section 508, 18.I.3, permanent sign types in standard permit for downtown village 1, 2, 3, and 4, and general purpose 1, 2, 3 zoning districts be amended. What are we talking about here? We changed some sign things last year.
Right, and there's more, there's another one too, but this one basically had left out the historic district out of any sign ordinance. So
Okay.
we decided to put it in, because there are historic districts that do get signs.
Is anything unique about allowances within that?
No, they just
Historic
have to follow the
district?
same rules as everybody else.
Okay.
Before, there was basically no rule for that district.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Article 7, so the ordinance titled Poland Comprehensive Land Use Code, Section 508, 18I 3.I, sign area, changeable signs be amended, and that you're talking about.
So yeah, electronic changeable signs.
Okay.
We allowed up to 32 square feet, but only 50% of it could be used at any one time. It's a nightmare to try to get out there and make sure that every sign is half lit at once. So rather than allow them 32 square feet, we propose to allow them 16 square feet, and then 16 square feet can be used totally.
What happens if somebody has a sign?
They're grandfathered in, whatever's there now.
Oh, that's grandfathered in?
Yeah.
And when it's grandfathered in, it's grandfathered
So
in
the
under
old code, so they still.
under the old rule, so they can only use half of it?
50% it can be lit up at any one time.
Okay.
There's no way to monitor that.
Any questions or comments? Article 8, so the ordinance titled Poland Comprehensive Land Use Code, Section 109.2, public hearing be amended. So this has to do with
There was an
notices
issue
of
last
public
year
hearing?
with a rezone of property,
Yeah,
that the land use code did not require us to notify butters for a zoning change. So, the planning board thought that it would be a good idea to add this in.
fully agree. We had that discussion at the end of last year's stuff, so.
Yeah.
Good. Any comments or questions related to that? Article 8, so the ordinance entitled Poland Comprehensive Land Use Code, Section 109, Section 506.2, Land Use Key, 508.6, Accessory Dwelling Units and Off-Site Accessory Structures, 508.7, B3, Family Dwellings, and 508.27.A, Land Use in Shoreland Zone, and 508.27A, Notes, and 508.27B, Principal and Accessory Structures, and Chapter 14, Definitions be amended.
This was the state DECD reviewed our accessory dwelling ordinance and felt that some of these, the definitions we had as far like accessory apartments and accessory residential structure confused the requirements of the state law for accessory dwellings. So we cleaned all that up per their request.
That was just verbiage.
Yeah, because we had different ways of, we called them accessory apartments or residential accessory structures.
Yeah.
They call them accessory dwelling units, they didn't want to get that confused, thinking there was something else.
Any comments or questions? Article number 10, shall the ordinance entitled Powell Comprehensive Land Use Code, sections 1602.e, 1602.e, administration, .e3, administration, and chapter 14 definitions be amended.
Kind of a last minute change, the planning board wants to remove large scale solar from our ordinance. So anything above 4 acres.
Could you please say that again, Scott?
Anything above 4 acres would not be allowed. Large scale solar would not be allowed.
Did that have any kind of a public hearing when they came up with that?
Yeah.
Comments or questions? So do we only have that one that would
We
not,
have one,
that would
and
be,
one that's in the works. It's been approved and is waiting approval from the state and CMP. Their approval is gonna run out. I think they're gonna come back in prior to June to get a new approval, so then they could then get an extension for another year, because it looks like 2027. And this is one that's never gonna be seen from the public unless you go down the train tracks. It's almost on the other side of the one that's there now. It's part of a bigger project in Auburn. It's all, everything's coming in through Auburn. They've had a hard time getting CFP approval, and I think they're gonna come back in, get reapproval, so it falls under the new one. I think at that point, we'd have to, if they came in for an extension, we'd have to get that extension.
and, so this is going, basically, everything's going to Auburn?
Well, it comes from property almost across where Kitty Hawk, right almost across from the airport.
Okay,
There's a small road in there now. I don't know what they have in there.
Is that new road they developed? Is that what you're talking
I
about?
don't think they've put a road in yet. I don't think they've
Oh.
even done a thing in there yet.
There's
This
just
has
one
been-
place where they put in a road there.
so
They've
this is
already
gonna
been
be,
much
further.
this is gonna be in back of the Irving farm
Yeah.
and all of
Yeah,
that
right in there.
type of thing?
They've been in here, they've been approved once. Their approval ran out, they came in and got approval again. They've got an extension now. So, this one's been going on for 3 years. And I do believe there may be another one that's gonna come in before June as well, on a 100-acre parcel. I think they only wanna use 10. I think I'm gonna try to talk to the board this year, if this goes through, that we look at some kind of buffer rather than ban them totally. But
Scott, what was the criteria for the 4 acres? What was the thinking?
well, that was,
Discussion?
we'd already had that in as it's called medium scale.
Oh, okay.
Medium scale was up to 4 acres.
Yeah.
Anything over 4 acres was large scale.
Okay. So, clarify, what's the 100 acres then? What?
Well,
If you have
there's
the-
a property owner that has 100 acres that was looking to probably lease their property
Oh, okay.
to a solar company, and they contacted me just prior to discussion on this.
So if it's 4 acres that the planning board has approved, and they have 100, but they want to do 10,
Well, if it's approved before the change in the land use code, then we have to allow them to do it.
okay, thank you.
And I'm assuming that our zoning controls which zones you can actually have these
Yes.
types of things in.
Yeah.
And they're allowed in what, farm forest or?
They are allowed in farm and forest, but there are other zones as well. They're not allowed downtown.
So no eyesore, you're saying, right? It's gotta be hidden.
Well, I mean, we already have buffer requirements, so we could enforce those,
Yeah,
and maybe more than we should, but I think we may want to look at a better buffers to allow the planning board to
Yeah.
offer those better than what we have now, and instead of just banning them totally, but that's, the board, and Cheryl can speak to this as well, and Cheryl's on the board as well, so. It was literally last minute, so we didn't have I sent it to the attorney just to make sure that everything was struck.
Any other comments or questions? All right, we'll move on to the municipal articles. Article 11.
Thanks, Scott.
Yep.
Thank you, Scott.
thanks, Scott.
Article 11 is basically the housekeeping article to do with taxes that are due on October 1st, 2025, and the remaining half due on April 1st, 2026. And then it goes on to the interest rate paid would be abated at 3%. And we'll see if the town will permit the tax collector to accidental tax entries, payment shortages is not to exceed $5. So we pretty much have this in every year's article thing. Any comments or questions? Moving on to Article 12, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $3,213,575 in revenue from non-property tax resources to reduce the total amount authorized to be raised by taxation, and further see if the town will authorize the Board of Select Persons and Treasurer to accept any additional revenues or funds that may be used to reduce the amount required by tax, to be raised by taxation. So basically, this is our non-taxable, non-taxation revenues in doing that. So any comments or questions related to the revenues that we have? From year to year, I think, sorry, I should have had my little cheat sheet thing.
It's in your packet.
Yeah, what page?
I'm looking at it now, page 21. It's an increase of 4.04% this year over last year.
That's the communication I wanted to provide.
Yep.
Thank you, Nikki.
You're welcome.
Fortunately, it's not showing my page thing, so I'll get to it real quick. Okay, if no other questions,
At the end of each of the articles, just mentioning that, whether we approved or disapproved them for the budget committee. I
okay,
don't know if that's,
The only thing that's been voted on so far is the budget committee approvals. Yours is a placeholder in there, and you don't vote on it till the
That's right.
15th.
thank you.
Yep.
so at this point, that article did have budget committee recommendation approval. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $1,675,000 for general government. Any comments or questions?
I had a question on the previous article.
Okay,
Sorry.
sure.
What are the non-taxation revenues?
So, could
I'll get
to the budget thing and
Yep.
read them off. They are excise taxes, they are fees from the transfer station.
The biggest
Um,
ones are the state municipal revenue sharing, the motor vehicle excise, the LRAP, ambulance service fees, investment interest, trust fund allocations, and then all other anticipated revenues are $343,000.
Any questions on Article 13 for general government?
So what is general government? Sorry.
That's
Why
That's
you're here?
great.
General government is basically what it takes to run the town as far as the town office, the clerks, the code enforcement office, finance, assessing, debt service, legal, audit, and assessing agents, our buildings and grounds, and our CATV systems.
Okay. So this would include like salaries for?
It includes the salaries for administration, which is our tax clerks and stuff like that, our code enforcement, not our code enforcement, sorry, our assessing, and our finance directors.
Okay. And there's raises built into that?
Yes,
Okay, and what is that for this year?
3.5%.
3.5%?
Yep.
Now, I know a few years ago, the raise was like 6%. So what has that increment been since the 6%? Do you know?
Oh, I left my cheat sheet. We apply a COLA to wages every year that's based on the Consumer Price Index. That's sampled at the end of the year, typically November. We then present that percentage as a recommendation to the Select Board. When we do that, we also include a sampling of other communities and what they provide for a cost of living adjustment. Typically, our cost of living adjustment, or COLA, falls in the middle of what other people are offering, half or higher, half or lower.
So we had a 5.4% increase, last year was at 3.2%, and then this year is 3.5%.
And we pretty much have embedded that into our policy as far as.
It's required by the personnel policy for myself to come up with a COLA recommendation, which I present to the Select Board in December, and then you take a vote on if you want to approve that COLA, and that's taken at that point in time so we can include that number in the budget as we develop that, and then publish the budget in late January or early February.
So is it based primarily on other towns in the surrounding area? Or, because I'm hearing the same thing from other towns, like it's getting a little bit above what taxpayers can afford. You know, me in the private sector, I'm not getting this.
Ours is
So-
based primarily on the CPIU index, which is the consumer price index that we get. That's what our personnel policy dictates for the town manager to give to them. So that comes out in the Northeast region. We go to the website, we look at that, and we give them that number, and then they can choose to either increase it, decrease it, or leave it. Most of the times they leave it and don't change it at all and say, yep, we're gonna go with that number.
Okay.
Hey, Nick and Matt, I got a question on that. Is that guaranteed or is that merit-based as well?
But
Is that a
we
discretion?
don't do a merit-based
Okay.
raises or any recognition.
Okay.
I think that we'll also find that this is a thing that like Social Security Administration and everybody would use to apply to all of that. So we're trying to be consistent to, you know, what kind of the direction out there and how things are. I do appreciate the comment that not all businesses in any particular year are gonna do the same. It's always been the case in all my years. So, yeah. But to both ends, I've seen my raises at my work that when I was, I'm now retired, but when I was working to be greater than sometimes the thing. So it all depends on the company a little bit as well, so.
And one of the things that, being a municipality, we've had people, and a few years ago, we had a wage study, and we were losing people to other municipalities who were paying more. So it becomes a problem, you know, if you don't kind of keep up with what others in our business, so to speak, are doing, people are gonna go someplace else. And, I mean, if, God forbid, we lose this guy here, we're in deep trouble. And so you wanna try to keep the people as reasonably happy as you can. And there are places that are paying more, but as they hopefully see that we're treating people well, that people will stay just because of that, even though it may not be top dollar.
I guess the flip side of that, so what I'm hearing is basically the taxpayers are almost being held like hostage to keep the personnel if we don't give them these raises.
because they'll go someplace else. And I think that's a big burden on the taxpayer. You know, if someone out in the private sector isn't getting, you know, the same kind of raise or cost of living adjustment, and then our taxes are going up, that's actually taking, you know, from our quality of life as well. So I can see both sides of
Yeah, it's
the
a
situation.
difficult issue, and believe me,
Yeah.
when I had my business, I ran into this, you know, as an employer. And it's really hard to find that balance, but if you lose someone, I'll use the front office as an example. If we lose one of the people there, they generally say it's 6 months before a person is any good to you working in a new position. I'm guessing if we lost one of the front clerks, that we would basically be down a person for at least 6 or 7 months before the new person would be trained to be able to do that job.
Right, but that happens in any
Yeah.
employment.
Yeah, I think the other aspect of that is that, so we talked about the retention, trying to have a valuable pay to have retention of people. But I think the other aspect of it is that when you're trying to go out and actually hire replacement people and doing the things, do you have a competitive wage that you're actually going to attract anybody to come and hire? Or all of a sudden, you know, because every job that we have, we've got a pay scale in the steps and the doings and the number of years of service, and et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, when you bring in that new person and they have these X qualifications that you're minimally looking for, but they may have a few more or whatever the case may be, you know, where are you gonna draw them? And is that rate of pay competitive to them getting a job at any other place that's out there? You know, an active person seeking to get a job, an active person looking to change. So if you're not competitive, all of a sudden you're coming back and you're having to say, okay, to hire this person, we're now gonna have to pay them Y. We're paying everybody else in that department X. And now what do you say as far as fairness factor to everybody else in that department? Then you start having those types of discussions. So I think all you can do is go out there and look at where you are in the market and look at our whole scale and look at our things and try to adjust things with a COLA to stay in the game and to be in that proximity to where you need to be. And there's always going to be exceptions to that, but I think that's the approach, you know, so it's not just retention, it's actually being able to attract when you need to attract, to replace people that have retired or whatever the case may be, to have to replace them, so.
And that's where the merit scale maybe would come in.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's all
If
kinds of
you're
different.
guaranteed you're gonna get a 3.5% raise, what extra are you bringing to the table, I guess? I don't know.
I guess you could look at it from this perspective. What is the actual impact, right? There's 4,500 residents and how many taxpayers? So if you break that down to all the taxpayers, what is really the impact to us as a taxpayer on their salaries? I mean, probably if you break it down, it's probably not much.
But
I
it's
would think.
cumulative,
What's that?
right? So the tax is cumulative.
Right.
I mean, it isn't just Article 13.
But unlike,
This is incorporated into.
yeah,
you know,
that's
the other
understandable.
articles,
I think
right?
that if you see the bigger thing coming down the road, that's a bigger impact on our taxes as opposed to this one right here. Great question, but I think this is little compared to what's coming down the road over here. I think we all,
But this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah.
These are the questions I'm asking.
yeah, no, it's
Not-
great
not-
question, right,
Oh, so-
right. But but the whole thing is it's, we're gonna do that for everything then. And then it's gonna be kind of a nitpicky thing. Great question, but I don't think that's, and again, I'm not speaking for them, but what is the real burden or impact to us as taxpayers, their salaries? That's a good question too, right?
I mean, it may for most residents be just a few cents, you know, not much of an impact to an individual property owner. I will say, you know, I'm a local business owner in town as well. I'm constantly telling my husband, your raises that you wanna give 5, sometimes 10% are not sustainable. I'm like, look at the town, they're only doing this. I think that if you look at sort of what the pay is for a municipal worker, I feel like they're usually well below other private sector areas in town, so the wages aren't as attractive. At least that's what I've seen. I don't know, Adam, you being in public works, if you've seen that, it's hard to compete with some of the starting wages
Very
to
much
attract
so.
people away from private sector. So the starting point's lower, and speaking as a business owner myself, I think that the cost of living increase is fair, sustainable, and relatively low impact to the
Yeah.
taxpayer.
I think that for you, Shell, every dollar that we take in tax revenue had to first be earned by a taxpayer.
Right.
Someone had to earn that money.
Right.
And I think that we treat each dollar as a valuable asset here in town, and we don't squander it, at least from my perspective. I'll just touch a little bit on the wages, because it seems to be an area that you're interested in. So a few years ago, we hired an HR consultant to help us build a wage scale. We hired her because we had never done one before, and we wanted the result to be as objective as possible. We looked at regional, and particularly neighboring communities, to get what they were paying people. She also interviewed all employees in town to see what they did and understand how that would compare to other positions. Based on that information, we developed a wage scale. That wage scale was then briefed to both the Budget Committee and the Select Board over a period of, I think it was 2 months worth of meetings, where we beat that around pretty good to understand what we were doing and why. There were a lot of hard questions asked, and we answered those. At the end of that, we had a wage scale that was ultimately approved by the Select Board, and then it was part of the recommended budget, which was ultimately approved by voters in the next fiscal year. Every year since then, we have added a COLA to that wage scale to keep the wages at market, so we didn't fall below. What we found when we developed the wage scale was in the 15 years prior to that, there was, for half of the time, there was zero cost of living adjustment. Other times, there was a cost of living adjustment that was markedly below what the CPI was. So basically, people who have been here for a long period of time were taking home, in real terms, less than they were when they started a few years ago. We wanted to correct that. We also did not want to be overly compensating people because, as I said at the beginning, those tax dollars have to be earned by taxpayers, and that's a big deal. And I think we I think we have a good wage system in place. I think we also look at other areas in our budget and expenses to economize, and that's an everyday thing to look at how we might save more money or spend taxpayers' money as wisely as we can. Did that help answer at least part of your question?
It did,
Okay.
yeah, most definitely. But I still, think some thought should be probably given to merit as well.
Well, I'll address the merit part of it. We're a small group, and earlier in my professional life, I had a lot of experience with merit-based HR systems, and they can work, but it's really cumbersome to set one up. And when you're dealing with a small group of, say, 3 people that are in one particular job, then it's like, well, wait a minute, you kind of work at cross purposes if you do something like that. And it's really personality dependent, the smaller the group size gets. The larger the group size, it's easier to do because you don't have that close personal relationship with everybody. And and that can be very fair in that one. But in smaller group sizes, I've not seen where that's been a good model to follow.
So you're saying conflict of interest where somebody might get
No, it's
4
too
people in the
small. It's
office,
like a
yeah,
weird,
well, yeah,
select board's making, $100,000 a year each person, but someone's gonna get a little more.
Right, that's what I meant, it's the conflict of
Someone
interest.
wants to sign up for that job.
But it's a tough thing to do, because, wait a minute, what the hell, that guy's late to meetings all the time, and
Right.
he's, what, no? It's a hard thing to do, and I understand, the merit-based idea. It's a really high hill to get over to make a system like that be effective in a small municipality, and I don't see it happening in other small towns, so we could have a model to follow.
We did try merit-based a long time ago, and it ended up basically, like he said, because the departments are so small, you have one other employee, and we say, okay, the most we're going up in raises is 3.2%, so you have up to 3.2% you can give that person. And it was given because they were the only other one in the department, so they're like, yep, they get 3.2%, because they didn't have anywhere else to give it anything else. And so it ended up just not really working much. And I have to say, all of our employees, I don't see many of them slacking in their work ethics at all. I think everybody puts in a lot of effort in their jobs, so, I think if someone's slacking, the department heads are on their, tails about it, but I don't see that happening. So I think we have a pretty good crew, and we're able to keep them.
Did
And I
that
like,
answer your question, Shelley?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep.
and I like how you're looking, because you're looking at it as I would look at it, my budget at my home, every line item,
Right.
so that's fair. I'm with you.
I might, if I can add something to this too, I'm the Public Works Director, and, I pride myself in, one of my old employees always claimed that I was the second tightest person with a buck that he had ever met. And the first was his grandmother that ran a dairy farm up until the point that she passed. And I look at it as in, and I try to I always say I run the Public Works Department like it was my own money. And I look at it as, there's a lot of things we do that save the town money. As far as like our road construction in the summer, we've done some cost analysis of that years back, and we can save thousands and thousands of dollars by doing this in-house. But I do need the people to do it with, and I need a few really key people to do this with. And they're people that are in demand, and they get poached from other towns and construction companies, and it's happened a lot. I mean, I think we've lost 10 people have gone to other departments since I've been here 11 years. And in 11 years, we've lost 10 people, not retirees, but that have gone to other jobs in other towns around. So you can not pay as much, but there is a flip side to the coin that, because there was a time when the town of Poland couldn't do their own roads, they hired it out. And, there's a fine line. I appreciate what you're saying, but I think, run efficiently, you can spend money on good people and compensate them well, and receive the benefits that those people, of the labors of those people, and that pays a dividend to the taxpayers as well.
Any other comments or questions?
No, great discussion.
Absolutely. Okay, next item is for Article 14, to see if the town will vote and raise and appropriate $756,029 to community services.
Community services includes planning and development, which is also known as code enforcement, recreation, salaries and benefits, because under our charter, it is our charter, the only thing we pay for is the two people's recreation salaries over there. We don't pay for any programming or anything. They have to raise and appropriate their own funds for that. The health officer, beach maintenance, conservation services, general assistance, social service agencies, the library, and ball field maintenance.
Any comments, questions? Hearing none, move on to Article 15. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $971,330 for public works and $521,533 for solid waste. Questions or comments? I appreciate Adam and what you said and what you guys do. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Article 16, to see if the town will vote and to raise and appropriate $2,246,478 for public safety.
Public safety includes our fire rescue, law enforcement contract, dispatching, animal control, street lights and beacon lights, and emergency management agency.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Article 17, to see if the town will appropriate for tax increment financing districts the estimated total amount of $981,500, depending upon the actual mill rate. Any questions or comments? I mean, the main thing that there are a little salaries and there are a little lights and whatever, but the main thing that we're expending out of the TIF districts is the sewer expansion, I think is the greatest bill.
And a couple other bonds that we have still in those, yeah. Which will be paid off by the end of the life of the TIFs.
Which is 2029, 2030, I think is the.
2027
Seven on one
and
of
2
them.
in 2030. Yep.
Article 18, to see if the town will vote and raise and appropriate $1,313,060 for capital improvement program. So this is where we squirrel money away to replace all of our things and stuff, so we don't bond out to buy a fire truck and we don't bond out to buy a public works vehicle. And we also, this is where the money for road work goes into this for paving and other stuff as well, so.
Yeah, so of that 1,300,000, 758,000 is for paving of town roads.
And that is a drop from last year by 45, nearly 45,000 in total.
Actually, I have a question, or kind of a
Sure.
thought, I guess. So, I'm on the planning board, so we recently had someone come in who's gonna be putting in a 49-house development in the town. And there's large developments going in all over. Have you given any thought to impact fees? Because they're gonna turn that road into a town road, which now the town is going to have to maintain. So I'm just thinking that the costs of these things are going up. It's not just burdening our schools, it's burdening our towns, our equipment, so just the thought that,
So for
Yeah,
it
to
to
me.
become a town road, it has to go to town meeting and it has to be voted on by the people in the town to become a town road.
okay,
So the people in the town have the right to say, we don't want any more roads, we are not letting that become a town road.
okay.
No. So any road that they want to become a town road has to go before the townspeople to become a town road.
Okay,
So it would be an article like this specific to that.
okay,
But to your point, you know, for me personally, I think it's always open for discussion. Because at the end of the day, there's the town impact of stuff of plowing and maintaining town roads and doing the impact, which is in itself significant. Maybe not in the near term, if it's built right. Obviously, we wouldn't let it become a town road if Adam didn't inspect it and say it met these standards, et cetera, right? To doing and stuff, we don't want to have something substandard become a town road. But I think the other, to your point with the whole thing with the school department, I think it's large, and when you're talking a development like that, you know, it's gonna bring more development and more people attending the school system within the school. Now, our overall school enrollment over the last 9 years has declined, especially for Poland. It's increased for Mechanic Falls, and it's been relatively flat for Minot, just because I'm involved in a lot of things that seen these numbers over the last few months. But I think my whole point would be is that at the end of the day, if you have a home and let's say you build a very nice home, it's worth, you know, $500,000, so therefore you're taxes are $4,000, just to do a round number, I'm not doing the exact math here. It costs over $10,000 for every student that we go to school district with as taxpayers. So at the end of the day, it is never a good economic discussion to say you're gonna go build a development and expect to keep up pace at the school department. And even though you'd maybe not have to hire more teachers or whatever, if you had a few more students, maybe that would bring that average down a little bit. I mean, there's dynamics that can occur there, but it's not gonna be the 4,000 to 9 or 10,000, I guess, is the mentality that I'm trying to bring forward. So you don't, with, residential development, you don't keep pace. So that's why, for me personally, everything about the CEDC and everything that we've been trying to do in creating some of the usable land that we have that can be commercial is so viable and so important. We need to have that balance in doing it. And at the same time, we need to have hiking trails and do the things and have balance and enjoy our community, right? But if we don't get some balance and we don't have a Poland Spring and we don't have some of these other type of properties, then, it's hard to sustain itself on residentials, to keep the tax burden down.
And it affects other roads as well. For instance, this particular development, I am quite sure is going to impact North Raymond Road heavily, which already is a nightmare from Route 11 to my house. So, these are the things that I'm thinking about, because that end of the road is swamp.
Yes.
So, these are thoughts that I'm thinking of. It's like, commuting
Yeah.
traffic. I'm sure these people aren't going to be working on Poland. I'm sure they're going to be commuting somewhere, and most likely towards Portland.
Yeah, and,
So,
and that should be a discussion, I
that's a
think,
thought
that
that-
could be
that I-
had between the planning board and this board
Right.
in future times to talk about and bring forth as a legislative thing to say, to go do that type of thing, impact fees, or you can actually also, some developments I see, even on the commercial side of things, you've actually got to make improvements to the road entrances that you have, and you got to improve the road and help step up the road if that's the type of impact that it's going to cause.
And that was discussed at, the planning board, that it would be to town standards, the road, that's gonna be going in for these homes. But that doesn't offset the traffic on Route 11, which I know is a state road, but the North Raymond Road, White Oak Hill Road, right, which is another state road. But just for instance, they're already broken down heavily. So how much can the town sustain in repaving these roads constantly? That's where my thought went for impact fees.
Yep,
Yeah.
I understand. I think the discussion's worth having. All right, Article 19, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate approximately $20,000 based on the mill rate for overlay for purposes of granting abatements and addressing other tax errors. It's a pretty standard thing that we've always had. Dollars. No questions, move on to Article 20. See if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Select Persons to transfer from the town's undesignated fund balance an amount of $30,000 for the purpose of funding property tax assistance ordinance in the amount not to exceed $388,666 for the purpose of reducing the total amount authorized to be raised by taxation for the fiscal year 2026. So the $30,000 is money that we've done to help some of our taxpayers that are long-standing taxpayers in the community that have need assistance towards their property taxes. And we've had money there. I think the money, we actually exhausted the money that was in it.
We did, and these funds will be used to help people in the coming year, and any excess funds will roll over to the next year.
So we're trying to have some set of money there to help out. It's a program that we've supported for a number of years.
And this is a senior program.
Yeah. And the other part of that, the $388,666 is the results of last year's audited tax things where we didn't expend all of the money that we raised, and it would go back into the general fund. And what we established as being our practice is to take that money, since we have enough in the general fund, we don't need to be keeping it put into the bank, is to take that money and roll it back out and reduce taxes before we even set the mill rate, right from the get-go. So that $388,666 would be applied. That's probably about a half a mil to taxes, just as a swag. And that's because of the work that all of the departments have done, and Matt and everybody in the town has done, that they've spent less, or we've taken in some of those other revenues that we didn't expect, came in a little higher, so it's always the combination of those two in most years. We had a year of $600,000 differences, and last year we had just $366,000. So it's kind of good that we're doing that. It's kind of good to be closer to the amount and not a big amount, because then we haven't taxed somebody and then, oh, okay, we'll roll it back. We just never taxed you for it to begin with. So to be closer to that effect to the town meeting, I think is, there's a balance there. But we don't want to just keep raising it to go sit in the bank. We have enough to our auditor's desire and our desire to, cover things in a catastrophic events or whatever, that we can pay the bills and keep things afloat and do what we need to do. So we don't need to put the money, we need to give it back to the taxpayers. So that's essentially what that's authorizing, but we can't do anything to the town if people don't authorize it. Okay. Those for county taxes. Yeah. And that's about I think it was a 10%,
10.6.
10.6% increase. Last year, I think we had over 12 or 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was up there.
Yeah, it was up there
Double
last
digits.
year.
Yeah, so, not what we like to see, but to see if the town, Article 22, to see if the town will authorize for the Board of Selectmen to transfer from the town's special revenue account $563,294 for the purpose of reducing the total amount authorized by taxation for 2026. This amount represents the extra tax that we collected for RSU 16 last year. So to just explain that, when we had to set the tax rate, the school budget had not been yet fully authorized. So what we had, and we had to by state law use the last one that was agreed to at the 3 town-wide district meeting to get the right language that was approved there. So we had to do that. That was not the budget that they actually ultimately got referendum approval on the 3rd try. It was their 2nd try in the number, but that number is what we had to set taxes to include that. So what we said is that we're gonna keep track of that, keep that doings, and we're gonna roll that back to the taxpayers and stuff, where again, it's not gonna go in the general fund, we're not gonna use it for other purposes. It's strictly, it was for the school, so it's extra, so it's there to help offset whatever the school increase is for this year, fully anticipating there will be some sort of increase. Even our town, we're having an increase here to what we're talking about tonight, so we will, that'll just help on taxes in doing, so that's. Any other comments or questions? If not, that's all the articles. Anybody else have any more general questions or comments?
The only thing I want to say real quick about that school one is the school cannot use that amount and deduct it from the amount they get authorized at town meeting. They have to come forward with their full amount, their full budget, not using that 563, because that 563 does not belong to them, it belongs to our taxpayers. And so this is just authorizing us to go ahead and use it to mitigate the mill rate further, to offset increases, because we collected it from taxpayers last year. And the right thing to do is what we told them we would do, and say we're using it the following year to mitigate tax rate.
And Matt and them work the other towns, and the other 2 towns doing the same thing.
Yes.
Right, and Mechanic Falls are doing the same thing. Because all 3 towns were affected in the same way, in the same percent. Anything else? If not, I can entertain a motion to close the public
Motion
hearing.
that we close the public hearing.
Stand on the motion.
I second.
John DeSantis.
Yes.
Stan Tetman.
Yes.
Steve Robinson.
Yes.
Mary Ann Hawks. Lisa Albee.
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, you have closed the public hearing at 7:26 PM.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
you.
Thank you for coming in and
Thanks for
asking
coming in.
questions.
This
You know,
is-
again, this helped me, hopefully, for people, you know, watching.
That's,
it's
exactly.
helping them as
I mean,
well.
we're gonna, whether you were here or not, we're gonna go through the things, but
Right.
dialogue and stuff obviously helps it.
Right.
Yeah.
Helps
If
to
you-
explain
If you
it.
have those questions, other people definitely have
I
questions.
know they do. Which is why I'm here asking them.
And I,
But,
you know,
yeah.
anybody that you
Yeah.
can encourage, and I will say it now, the thing, we're having another one next Monday night.
Okay.
6:30.
It's 6:30, that will just be that, it won't be a Board of Select Persons meeting continuing, it'll just be for this purpose.
Okay.
But to again explain, so when we changed the charter, we said that we would force 2 of these types of meetings to have discussion back and forth in
Okay.
doing the things, because there isn't an open town meeting to have people ask the questions, right? They go to the voting booth and they say yes or no to every article, so. that's-
Monday nights, will that be televised?
Yes.
Okay, so if you know of anybody, they don't have to take the time to come in, they can join on Zoom. and ask the
Or
questions.
watch YouTube live.
Okay.
And
They
quick
can ask
question.
questions through Zoom though.
Quick
No, they
question
can
for
ask
you.
questions
Yes.
through Zoom.
Oh, they can ask
Absolutely,
questions?
yes.
through-
That's what I'm
okay.
saying, that they
Okay.
don't necessarily have to come in.
Oh, okay, okay.
Absolutely.
We always
we
appreciate
encourage-
having people come in, but
Right.
if they don't have the time, they don't wanna go out at night, they
Right,
can,
Can't leave their children, whatever the case may be, right?
right, okay.
Just a quick question,
Yeah.
because I'm curious, how did you hear about this and know to come? Did you hear it through social media or a friend, or did you hear it from?
Yeah, I
the
think it's
husband?
right online, on social media, but I'm also on the planning board, so Sarah announces it, so.
Yeah.
So,
Great, thank you.
all right, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
So, any questions for items not on our agenda tonight?
I have.
You want to
Okay.
come up and introduce
introduce
yourself?
yourself, say hello.
How's it going? My name is Jackson Learned. I'm sure you know us from Learned Brothers Services or 207 Waste. You know, we've gotten the businesses up and going in the past, few years. Learned Brothers, we started when we were sophomores in high school, built it up from that. With 207 Waste backing that up just a few years ago. But being with that and being part of the community and everything else, it's been kind of a bigger push for me to get into the board. I think it, strives to see, I think a lot of people are educated and want to see more from the town. But I think it's also harder for the younger community to kind of jump into that, and I feel like everybody thinks that, it's an older, section of the area to jump into it. So I think seeing that and then allowing it and kind of promoting it, to see younger people on boards would definitely be a better push. But also having the business background and everything else and knowing the code book and stuff like that will definitely be a good sight onto the board. So I think that's my kind of bigger push is not only that, but, to see more housing, more businesses and, in the town. Making it easier, a little easier for the businesses to be able to come into town. I know just us getting up and going was kind of a little bit of a struggle, but we were able to, iron everything out and get everything, to the way that it needs to get. And so I think it'll definitely be definitely good set, for me to be on it, another set of eyes and ears, and yeah.
So for those of you who did know and didn't get out of his thing, Jackson is running for one of the select board positions at the June 10th, and his name will be on the ballot.
So he's the younger one he's talking about?
He's the younger
Yeah.
one.
We would be the old people, he's talking
I'm thinking,
Probably the oldest are leaving.
I'm thinking these guys are old over here. I'm thinking, what?
Hey, speak for yourself.
You're not talking about me, right?
you some good lessons too.
Yes, he's taught me a lot and still keeps
Good
teaching
man.
me about a lot of it and,
Yeah.
yeah. But, no, he's got a lot of insight to the town and still keeps growing on that, so.
I think it's great.
It's nice to see you
Yeah.
running, Jack.
Yeah, definitely.
Good luck
Thank
to
you.
you.
Thanks
Yes,
for coming
appreciate
in.
it, thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Matt, page 42 is your manager's report.
Manager report for 1 April, the RSU manager breakfast, we discussed the budget process in general, state unfunded mandates and municipal budget status and challenges. The town office generator, it's in place, the electrical connections are complete. We gotta hook up the gas and then we'll get that thing started and be operational. It's in back over here. The Maine Waste to Energy Executive Committee, we discussed the budget, but we're looking at ways to generate additional revenue. The last outage, when the plant shut down for maintenance and repair, took longer and cost more than anticipated. One possibility reviewed was a rate increase. And this rate increase would take place likely 1 July, so we have not budgeted for it. So a little more on that. We basically, they've expended the reserve fund to keep the plant going. When the plant shut down, you have to put the trash somewhere and you have to pay for it to go. You're not taking in the same amount of revenue you do when you're generating electricity and doing all that other stuff. So in order to make sure that we have enough funds, should we need to shut down unexpectedly, we're looking very, very seriously at a rate increase. We're gonna have a out-of-cycle meeting next week. I may ask a board member to come with me so you have a better understanding of what's going on, but the room's not that big, so I don't know how many people we can fit. But looking at that, we also are looking at other things like property insurance. If we are gonna not pay that bill this year, that's $500,000 that could be used to keep the plant running. The amount that we're insured for is not enough to replace the plant, so we've got to look at the insurance policy and see what that's going to cover. But I think we're taking some strong, responsible moves here to ensure that the facility continues to operate well, and it is right now. But I don't know who thought up being a member of the Maine Waste to Energy facility, but that's probably one of the best financial deals the town ever made. We pay $47 a ton. Non-member communities are about 90. So so more to follow on that, but
Any idea about what type of percentage, or it's too early to even think about that?
there's a whole range of percentages going up, being talked about, and they're not small, from $8 to $16 to $20 per ton. $8 is 13 grand additional for us a year. 16, I think, was 26 or something like that. So we can, and we've looked at our budget, the lower numbers we can probably deal with the budget as it exists. When you start to go higher, that's when it gets a lot more challenging. But the bad thing that could happen is you don't want to have that plant without any funding, so that if something happens, that they can't fix it and then get back up on their feet. Because then we have to send our trash somewhere else, and we're not going to be paying $47 a ton at that point. So more to follow on that. I'm hopeful to get, that the idea was to bring some elected officials to this next meeting so we can give people a better understanding of what the challenge is. And we're lucky, the executive director there is a pretty switched on guy. And so I think we'll get through it. It's just something we've got to do.
Matt, how much of the trash, what's the percent of member communities to non-member as far as the intake?
There's 10 member, and I think it was 16 non-member communities.
From a volume of trash?
The volume of trash, the vast majority is, the majority is coming from the non-member communities. The member community that drives it up is Auburn. And I don't have the percentage breakdown, so it's, I think the non-member communities have a higher percentage of the trash total.
And what kind of dollars are they talking about to the non-member raises? The same dollars you were talking about? Or
Their rate is gonna remain the same, because if you wanna talk about the elasticity of demand in economics, we have raised their rates as high as we can go without exceeding what they would pay to go to another facility. And, the $90 figure, that's a rough idea. So we're gonna look at that.
They're just gonna go somewhere else, you're not gonna get the trash, and that's gonna hurt your economics
Yeah,
at
so
the end of the day.
We're looking at that. There's a bunch of different facets to this, but that's a very real thing that could be coming along. We'll talk about it more at the next meeting, and probably the next meeting after that as well, so everybody knows exactly what's happening and why it's happening. So more to follow on that one. The AvCog Executive Committee reviewed and approved the annual audit, reviewed and took action on internal policies. Public Works wages. I've implemented proficiency pay of $2 an hour for Public Works employees who hold a commercial driver's license. When Adam was talking earlier, we are not able to hire qualified people to drive our plow trucks. We can't do it. We have one opening now. The guy that left went to Mechanic Falls for a variety of reasons. He was also an equipment operator. We had a previous opening that we filled with a really motivated and likable guy who did not hold a CDL. Adam has instituted a CDL training program at Public Works to train this guy, but that's a little bit of a long road. We did a wage survey just for Public Works departments in the local area. This puts our wages up on par with the folks that are in the area, and we're hopeful that we can attract workers. We're paying for this by eating it within the Public Works budget for the rest of this year and all of next year. It's about a $25,000 bill annually. We feel that we can do that. As we get into the summer months, we're going to take a look at wages town-wide, and if we need to make an adjustment, we'll do it all in one fell swoop in next year's municipal budget.
How are you, I'm just curious about the CDL program. Is that something that you're doing in-house or you're
In-house.
outsourcing that?
Oh, yeah, it's expensive if you outsource it. I don't know, what, 10 grand or something like that, better part of 10 grand to get a commercial driver's license.
About 6 to do a B.
Yeah, so, I thought Adam was pretty resourceful. We bought the books, we're sending him to school. Now all he has to do is pass the written test to get his permit, and then he can drive around with the truck till we're confident he can pass the practical test. So we're trying a number of ways to do this, but
Well, CDL drivers are in hot demand,
Yeah.
so
They
is there
are.
any opportunity to maybe open it up to local businesses that might be able to do some cost sharing with you?
So it's, the Poland Public Works is a licensed truck driving school now, actually, and you can kind of be your own. It's not that difficult. There's a bunch of hoops to jump through, and you got to have the right spaces and trucks, which are basic. But and you have to have an approved curriculum, which we bought, which was like $300, but it wasn't. And as long as you are training your own people, and you're not charging any money for it, and you're not giving any college credits for it, there is basically no oversight as far as you just have to produce a candidate that can pass the tests. If you open it up to anyone outside of your own organization, then there is oversight as far as, so it
Yeah.
would.
More rules.
There's a lot more rules to it. You know, there was a Maine municipal put on a webinar a year or so ago about it, and it was looked that there was, you know, there was some leeway that, you know, maybe some municipalities could do it and help other municipalities. But I haven't looked into that, you know, further than that, because I couldn't find anybody that was gonna help me, so we just did it. This is just a little handout, if you don't mind me. This is what I sent you as far as the.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
If this.
Yeah, yeah.
For
Thank
everyone
you.
that's,
Just so you have that.
what I came up with, the reasons we have to do this. And I'm happy to read that if that would be helpful. There's some in the back too.
Thank you.
Adam, would you do me a favor, and please do read it, because the
Okay.
folks at home won't have a copy of
That's
this.
right.
Since I started in 2014, we have had 10 full-time employees leave the public works for other places. And that, as I said, doesn't include people that have retired, that's people that have left for other jobs, other municipalities. In October 2024, I put here one of the best, but we lost the best equipment operator that I've worked with in my time of public works. After 2 months of advertising, the best I was able to come up with advertising, the most I am able to pay by our current policies, was a great guy with good work ethic, but no CDL and no equipment operating experience. And so I've hired him provisionally. He's got 6 months to get his license and get going, and it's going well. As of March 6th of this year, my other operator and crew leader is leaving and taking a position in a neighboring town. And at this point, I don't have enough staff to cover all my plow routes. We have 5 big truck plow routes and 1 smaller plow route that's done with a half-size truck. I have 4 people, including myself right now, that can drive a big plow truck. So we plow, and if you've lived over on McGuire Hill Road end of town, you've noticed the last few storms, it's hours before things get cleaned up. Because we have to plow the other routes, and it just doesn't work. There's one plow route that I can have the guy add a couple miles to his route and help out that side, but it just doesn't work it's just, the geography doesn't work to just add a couple miles from every person. You gotta get this route done over here on this side of town, and that takes 2.5 hours before you can start on this side. And thankfully, we're coming into spring, and I'm hoping that there's not too many more times we have to do that, because it just doesn't work well. Our current pay structure allows me to hire a driver, operator, laborer in the range of $21.79 to $22.67 an hour, depending on experience. In 2012, we paid driver, operator, laborers $17.80 per hour. And adjusted for inflation, that is $24.63 in today's dollar. Many of the towns around us are starting at a higher wage. New Gloucester's starting pay is $25 an hour. And they had this problem in the fall. They had 3 open positions. They were advertising at $21 an hour. And he said, I'm picking up the phone to see if there's a dial tone, because no one's going to work for that with a CDL license. He said, we moved it to 25, and I was able to hire 3 good qualified people for the winter. Raymond pays 25 to 31, depending on position. Gray's last new hire was in January of 2025 at 25 to 26. I talked to the director in Minot. He says he has had an open position for 3 years that he has not been able to fill, between $18 and $20 an hour. And that is the pay range he can offer. One of the other many reasons we need to pay, and I put more, and the proficiency pay is not more, it's comparable, more than other towns around us, is I feel that we demand more out of our employees than other towns. I've always said, and I always advertise the position as this, we are not a sit in the break room and wait for it to snow public works department. We have more road miles in town per man than any town around us. Last man that left the town of Poland plowed a 17-mile route in Poland, and now plows 7 miles for a neighboring town. In between snowstorms, you know, the trucks get washed, they get greased, they get checked out ready for that snowstorm, and then we're on to something else. There's no sitting in the break room waiting for it to snow, puttering around. You know, you've noticed in the last few years, we have cut miles of roadside. You know, the brushback that has needed it for years. This is hard, cold, hard work that no one especially enjoys, but needs desperately to be done. There are no other towns doing this, to my knowledge, in the middle of winter. I mean, but it's when we have the time to do it, and it's a good fit, you know, we're gonna stay busy. I've always prided myself in the fact that the Poland Public Works Department has been a we-can-do-it department. You know, everything that Matt always says, you know, we've got an excellent working relationship, and he says, I can always say no, but I don't say no very often. You know, he'll come with a project, and you know, what do you think? You think you can fit that in? And we always try to.
He's our annual car septic guy.
Doing everything we can in-house to save the town money, from building maintenance, roofing, painting, septic repair, concrete work, custom metal fabrication, tree removal and trimming, to commercial excavation, and road building. I have a phenomenal equipment truck mechanic. You know, Mike, I was a mechanic before I was a director. Mike is 10 times the mechanic I ever was on my best day. Nothing leaves the Poland Public Works to be worked on anywhere else unless it's a warranty. It blows my mind every day to be able to work with Poland people like that. From the newest computer diagnostic stuff to ancient mechanical, there's nothing that man can't fix. If we want to continue in the same pattern, we need to be able to attract and retain high-quality, motivated employees. To do this, I suggest a minimum of a $2 per raise in compensation for all drivers with a commercial driver's license in the department. This would increase our starting pay range to $23.79 to $24.67 would be what I'd be allowed to pay. Still significantly lower than Gray, Gloucester, and Raymond.
So I have some input here, since I've been in transportation for 40 years. So right off the bat, the first thing that comes to mind is I think this is a good plan to hire someone that may not have that experience. So I'm going to tell you why. So being in the industry for 40 years, since 1984, with multi-billion-dollar corporations that I work for, you're not going to find a CDL driver that's going to come in here and work for less than $30 an hour. Especially the over-the-road guys,
Yep.
right? So personally, I think taking this approach is probably the best thing for the town, and the best thing for you as well, so you're not having that turnover.
Yep.
So I think that investment in the training is well worth it, so I think that's smart. Because that individual didn't come from that environment, so unless he gets wind of it that he's got a CDL and he takes off, right?
Yeah.
That could happen.
Which happens, but
Yeah.
it's, you know, and I don't blame anybody for bettering themselves.
Well, you know, the whole thing is having a CDL is, right, you can go, it's like having a ticket to go anywhere, to any major corporation, trucking companies, oil and
You will
gas.
never want for work.
Right, but I think if you can get this gentleman on board to do that, I think that is wise, cost effectively, and also it keeps him in-house, and then you can control the cost there as well. I mean, I look at that pay scale, and for me, being in the industry, it's like, I can see why you're having a hard time. I was gonna suggest somebody, but he's getting paid $32 an hour. He's young, he's only 21,
Yeah,
so.
and I mean, I have all kinds of people that are, oh, yeah, I love,
Yeah.
they love and I usually can hire people.
Yeah.
Even, I mean, that's how I've existed the past, 8 years, is the guys come in and they say, boy, they're usually burned out over-the-road truck drivers. They've been working 80 hours a week, and they're like, the 4 10-hour day is just, wow, that's all, they love it. And they come in and they do really good, And, like a year later, they're really wanting the overtime, and it's like 2 years down the road, and they're saying, more of the people that have left and haven't have said, I love the job. It's a great place to work. I'm 2 minutes from the house, but I gotta make more money.
Right.
And they go to Bath Iron Works, or they go, it just,
Yeah, I think and Matt, we've had this discussion, and he's mentioned it several times, how we keep everything in-house.
Yep.
And you guys, you're right, and the residents don't really know. I know Matt's made it clear. I've talked to Steve and everybody on the panel here, on the board. Just internally, the town does whatever it can to save cost. I think this is smart. I love it. I think it's a great idea, great investment. Hopefully you can get this gentleman groomed and on board to want to stay.
Yep.
And then, obviously bring to the Matt and the select board if there has to be a merit increase to keep him, I guess. But I just wanted to say, put my input, that I think it's smart to go that route. Of course, I'm looking at the pay scale, but yeah, I think it's,
there are other things. I mean, we have excellent benefits.
Yeah.
We have, I try to stress that, we have excellent health insurance. We have, as I put in the ad, it's a 3-day weekend every weekend, unless it's weather permitting. So there's some trade-offs there, but, I just, the last time I tried to hire in the fall, there wasn't, it's just crickets, there's nobody there. And, and now I'm down another person, so it's.
I'd also like to mention for the people that aren't aware, the amount of work that you do on the fire rescue vehicles.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine the tens of thousands of dollars that or more would cost if we had to do it out of house.
Yeah.
So it is a significant, and to have reliable, like
Yeah.
you said, Mike, he's amazing.
Yeah,
And the best of the best working on the equipment, getting it out the door when the people need it.
And in speaking to the merit pay, as we were speaking before, when we did have merit pay, I split the merit pay between my guys evenly. I mean, the merit is, you work at home, you work there. There's everybody has their specialty. I work with great guys. Brian Marshall so I live on the Strout Road. I've lived in Poland, lived on the Strout Road all my life, obviously. Brian Marshall has plowed my road since I was 6 years old. I've been there 11 years, and in 11 years, that man has not missed a snowstorm. Public Works hours are 6 to 4. I don't know what time he gets there, but it's before 5:30 every morning. He's one of these guys that if you don't tell Brian something to do, he's gonna find something to do, and it's something that's worthwhile doing. And the guys say, Brian's doing Brian things. And it's stuff that you either didn't know needed to be done, and he just took care of it, or that you'd forgotten to do, and he just took care of it. And there's no fanfare about it, it's just he took care of it, because that's what he does. And I've got a younger gentleman, Ethan. He's been there about 2 years now, and he's just excited to, he drove a box truck, hadn't done a lot of other things, had just had his license a few years. He's come on board and really done great. He's learned a lot from Mike. Right now he's really into welding fabrication, and if you've gone through by the Public Works garage, we've got one of the transfer stations, roll-off cans upside down in front of the building. Getting all the rails cut off from it, and new ones put on, and I mean that can be thrown out in most places. And we're going to put about $800 and a couple of days of his labor into it, and it's one of those things that's between. It's mud season. We're not doing too much digging work right now. We're trying to catch on maintenance stuff, work on sweepers. It's not quite ready to sweep yet. He's going to learn a lot of things working on that, and we're going to get a lot of benefit out of it. And I feel privileged to work with a great bunch of guys every day.
Thank you.
That's great, that's great.
Thank you.
If you want to just stay, we'll get through the rest of Matt's thing, and then we'll jump down to the RFPs.
Sure, thanks, Steve. The library way forward, I met with our architect and the contractor to consider options. We pulled our main bond bank bond application earlier today. We didn't see any reason not to. The next step is the contractor, H.E. Callahan, is willing to work with us to review their cost structure, the design, the construction materials, the schedule, and design features to see if we can get this, the library project within the available funds that we have. Senator Collins's office has been very helpful. They have another round of congressionally directed spending opening up, and I am applying for more money. We're going to see if that works. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And we'll see that I've got a letter I'll ask you to sign here, a letter of support for that. I'll do the same thing with Senator King. Congressman Golden has not figured out their community project funding. That's the House version of this. But, you know, we're just going to keep moving until we can't move anymore. The thing that we're sensitive to is we don't want to try to stick a round peg in a square hole. If we're not going to get something that we think is going to be a good quality product here, then we're just going to stop.
Scrap it, yeah.
So that, you know, we don't want to, we got to be careful because almost all of it, with the exception of some grant money, is taxpayer dollar. So we want to spend that wisely. The other things I have are the MDOT and the CEDC. I met with CED chairs. Someone have a question? Did I miss that?
No, he just.
Okay. Met with the CEDC chair and MDOT representatives. DOT described programs that could be helpful to CEDC initiatives for downtown village improvement. I reviewed the possible way forward with the CEDC chair. The first step of which I recommended to him that they figure out what their product is, what they're trying to tell people they want to do. They don't need a design, they just need to say this is what we want to do. I think they've gone a good way to figuring that out, but that's going to require some, I think, hard thinking. Once they do that, then DOT reps can be called in and they'll be able to guide their thinking. And there are a number of steps that we talked about, but the CED chair was pretty receptive to that. The other things that I wanted to mention, we had a transfer station pre-bid last Friday. It was well attended. They asked that we open the bid opening, move the bid opening till 11 April. Doesn't affect when you'll see the results, but that's a good thing. We had good, strong interest from very well qualified terms. Jensen Baird, our town law firm, is sunsetting their municipal law practice. So we're gonna have to look for another way to do that. They had a number of retirements and people moved on. They just didn't have enough people to make that work. Next meeting, we'll talk a little bit more about possible solutions. But there is a solution to that, and we'll talk about that. The last thing I talk about on this is the next meeting you also see another RFP for a loader. The one that Adam has will go up to the transfer station. The loader at the transfer station is just becoming too, it's not cost effective to keep repairing that thing. These loaders, that's a 30-year vehicle for the town of Poland. First 15's with Adam. The second 15 is nominally with Marvin. 15 turns into 17 at these places. We get good value for money out of those things, but more to follow on that. I just wanted to give people a sense for what was going on, and I guess that concludes the manager report, unless there's any other questions.
Yeah, I'm going to be at breakfast when Matt was at breakfast with the other town officials.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and it was just nice, we were sitting next to them, overheard a little bit of the conversation, and it was just nice to see them all interacting, and it looked like it was a good conversation for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. One other quick comment that came to my mind, Matt, back to the waste discussion. Is there any discussion amongst that group and organization of different rates after you get to a certain volume from member towns?
No, it's a price per ton. And like I said, I didn't want to sound too trite about the elasticity of demand, but people will go somewhere else if we start charging them too much. But it's a full court press to look at where we can get additional revenues, what we can do, and anything that we can do will be done to generate more revenue.
Great, thanks. We'll skip over the financials right now and move down to our RFPs. This will just begin, the first one on the list is on page 62, crack sealing.
Yep, crack sealing, we'll send that out and get that back May 1st, and we'll have the select board see the results on Tuesday, May 6th.
Okay, when are we anticipating that'll, oh, that's crack sealing, okay. I'm thinking striping.
So, any questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we send out the bids, the RFP for crack sealing on our roads.
Take a stand. Yep, is she seconded?
John
Great,
DeSantis.
Yes.
Stan Tetman.
Yes.
Steve Robinson.
yes.
Marion Hawks.
Yes.
Lisa Elby.
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, you have approved the crack sealing RFP to go out to the public.
Yeah, I think that crack sealing is well worth it, and I see that Plains Road is on it, and we resurface that or whatever, but where I drive it more frequently than any other road in this town, I do see it has its opportunities, not a lot, but it has its opportunities. It's like getting from the beginning, I think, buys us a lot.
Carpenter Road too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. There's in my mind, there's a window when the road is ripe for crack sealing. When it gets too far gone, it's pretty expensive per pound, and you're pouring money into the ditch is basically what it is. But like you say, Plains Road, Carpenter Road, if you get them before they're too bad, it's money well spent.
All right, moving on to the next one on page 65 is line striping.
Yeah, same thing, we added another road here. We'll get it out, get it back Thursday, May 1st, and you'll see the results at the same meeting. You see the crack sealing May 6th.
When do you anticipate the striping will be done?
We usually try to get it done just as soon as we're done sweeping, so, early June.
Yeah, I will say that, last night driving through the fog, it's tremendous to be able to have
Yeah.
the roads striped in the major roads and to what we do. I've said it past years and I still continue to. I think it's well worth it from a safety perspective, everything else about it, so.
Yep, and Cleve Trip Road I've wanted to add for years, and I'm not sure we have the money to do it this year, but in years past I've known we didn't. It wasn't gonna fit in the budget. Because we put the money in, but every year, in the last few, it's gone up exponentially. And Cleve Trip Road, if you've driven it, is like a snake's back, so.
Yeah.
Just seems like it would be a good place to, and that's really the only road that I repeatedly get the question, why isn't there a line on it?
Yeah, I know that some towns went to a single line on their roads.
It is half the money, but it's not at all actually a legal uniform traffic device. It really doesn't need, double line means no
I just found
passing.
that interesting when I've driven into some towns and it's a one line.
Well, it is half the money.
So, motion please?
Make a motion that we send out the road center line painting request proposals.
Second that?
John DeSantis.
Yes.
Stan Tetman.
Yes.
Steve Robinson.
Yes.
Marion Hawks.
Yes.
Lisa Elby.
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, you have approved the line striping RFP to go out to the public.
Okay, here's the paving results.
Yeah, bids were open on Thursday, March 27th at 11 a.m. with myself Nikki and Adam present. We received 5 bids, one from Pike Industries for $786,124.70. Northeast Paving for $939,369.50. Glidden Paving, $808,541.30. Gendron Corporation for $749,383.30. And Spencer Group for $132,131.70. Recommendation is to award the bid to Spencer Group as the lowest bidder, and also the company we have previously contracted with. This bid is below the budgeted amount.
I'll entertain that motion.
I make a motion that we award the bid to Spencer Group
A
for
second.
$722,131.70.
Now I second that.
Thank you both.
Question, is there a clause in there with the way prices are going?
Yes, exactly. So it's called an
An escalator.
Escalator.
Yeah.
So the price per ton can change. It's based on the price of liquid asphalt the day it was bid. And it's a publicly traded commodity. You can look at what the main price of liquid asphalt is. It updates, I think, either every week or every 2 weeks. And so if it goes up, if they pay more, we will pay more. If they pay less, we will pay less. But that way they actually said they're not even offering a fixed price right now for more than, Dennis said, his paving price is good for 10 days, which is super helpful when bidding work. So if the liquid asphalt price does, it's like fuel. You know, if it goes up, it's not going to change the number huge. And years in the past, we've done this as long as I've been here. Years in the past, some years we've paid a little more, some years it's gone down. I honestly think it's probably a net wash at the end of 10 years. But there's no insurance policy built into it.
Where does it come from?
Canada.
Yep.
That was my question, my concern. Okay.
And then the budget is, if you just look at the bid price, it is significantly less than the budgeted amount. But the bid price from Spencer does not include all the gravel I'm gonna buy for Colbath Road. At the end of the day, we're still under, as it's estimated at this point, but it's not that huge dollar amount you're seeing.
So Colbath's gonna get
Complete.
finally,
Yep. Thank you for your
A lot
patience.
of people happy.
now that my brother-in-law doesn't live down that way anymore.
John DeSantis.
Yes.
Stan Tettenman.
Yes.
Steve Robinson.
Yes.
Marianne Hawks.
Yes.
Lisa Alvey.
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, you have awarded the paving RFP to Spencer Group in the amount of $722,131.70.
Great.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you for coming in.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks
Thanks for all the
help.
effort and things that you and your whole group does.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Very much appreciated.
very grateful for them.
Hey, Adam, I don't know if you could get a copy of that to the lady that was in here? Because that gives a little more explanation than what we had even
Okay.
talked about.
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
sure
sure we
I
can.
appreciate
Yeah,
receiving it.
I bet we can email that to her. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, we can call back to page 43 for our financials.
We're 76.92% through the year. You can see we put the solar power savings back on, and we saved total of $4,000 on the solar panels. It was not as much as we had thought earlier, so we'll continue to track that. Just moving on to revenue, bit of a good news story on motor vehicle excise. That's a little higher than the glide slope. Financials are pretty good for us at this time of year, and I'm briefing off the expense report summary. You can see community service, the whole area is just below the glide slope. The thing that drives that up is the library, because we transfer money into that. Public Works is doing really well at 62, solid waste at 69, Public safety, even those guys are just below glide slope. Law enforcement itself is a little bit higher, but that's for contract payment, timing. And financial services is at 75.76, and the total 76.52 for expenses, so we're doing okay there. Any questions on financials?
Yeah, I'm just curious,
Mhm.
I don't know if I'm reading this correctly, but we had budgeted 575,000 for the use of undesignated fund balance from the previous year,
Mhm.
and we haven't used that.
We won't do that till the end.
Is it possible that we won't, or is that still?
It really depends on how much we need.
Right.
So, I had that question a while ago too, and so that just sits there. At the end of the fiscal year, we'll see how much we need to make things good. If we don't need to use that, it drops back into the,
And we would count it as a positive thing rolling into the next year's taxes, right? So it'd be
Yep.
whatever the delta is plus
Yeah.
whatever's left of
Yep.
that, right?
that answer your question, Mary?
Oh, well, sort of, so we've already put on the warrant that we're carrying over 388,666. Could that number possibly go up, or is that just?
No.
No, that's the audited
That's
number
it.
from the previous year's budget, and that's how much we basically did not spend and had additional revenue, the balance that fell into the general fund and then on through to the unassigned fund
Okay,
balance.
so it's like a year
Yeah,
behind
but-
than what we see here, okay. So it's potentially for the next year to have more of a potential. I guess
We
it
could.
depends on how the
Yeah.
audit comes out.
So when, like in the newsletter, it says it's a 70-day fund balance in there, that 575 is already accounted for and taken out of that
Okay,
balance.
so that
Um,
was sort of what I was.
So
thinking.
it's already taken out of that balance. When I say there's a 70-day left in there, that 575 is already, because the
It's already
townspeople
accounted for.
authorized it to be used, I have to count it as being used and out of the fund
So,
balance.
so if we
Got it,
didn't
okay.
use the 575, we've got 70 days plus 575.
Yep.
Yeah, and just looking at I mean, we're already collected 92.8% of the revenues we expected to, that's doing pretty good, right?
Yes
We were
and
way
no.
over on,
So
excise
what you have to be
tax.
careful with is there's some like tax commitment revenue and ambulance service fees and stuff. Our actual revenue, that's what we've billed out. That's not the
We haven't
actual money
collected.
that we've received in. That's how we have to account for that. So that's what we've billed out, but we don't always receive that money in.
so it's based on accrual, not necessarily cash.
Correct.
Got it, okay, thank you.
I'll entertain a motion related to the financials.
Make a motion that we accept the financials as presented.
Thank you,
Second?
thank you. Any other discussion?
John DeSantis,
Yes.
Stan Tetman,
Yes.
Steve Robinson,
Yes.
Mary Ann Hawks,
Yes.
Lisa Alby.
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, you have approved the financials as presented.
Okay, let's move on to payables on page 75.
And make a motion that we pay our bills for fiscal year 2025 in the amount of $206,608.62.
Second?
John DeSantis.
Yes.
Stan Tetman.
Yes.
Steve Robinson.
Yes.
Mary Ann Hawks.
Yes.
Lisa Alby.
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, you have approved the payables in the amount of $206,608.62.
So this evening, we do have an executive session on the schedule, so we will do our any other business and do things, and then we'll kind of close the regular meeting that will be televised, do our executive session, and meeting will officially close, but we won't be back on when we get done with this part. So, any other business, John?
No, I guess the groundhog was right.
I've got a couple of things. I was wondering if we could arrange for a patient review of the funds that we have with them.
Sure, we can get them.
Because I don't know if we've had a review since all the new folks have been on the board. Mary Ann has been through at least one, just so they'll get to meet Dan or whoever's gonna do it.
Sure.
They'll learn a little bit about the library fund. In the MMA newsletter there was a thing that was talking about signatures that may have changed over the years on people. I'm just wondering, has that been any kind of an issue in our town? No. Okay. And the last question, the lady was talking about a new development of 49 units
Yeah.
someplace, where is that?
It's gonna be up from Route 11, past, so Bakerstown Road past the North Raymond intersection heading towards Casco. So where I think it's Jessica's Way is, it's
Yeah, it's
gonna
up-
be up off that.
Yeah, but that's still early days with the planning board and,
Is it houses?
yeah,
Is that
it's houses.
houses?
Yeah.
But they've got a ways to go before
Yeah.
that,
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So it's before the
She said, I got a
farm.
copy, 2049.
So between Raymond Road and the farm.
Yes.
Good question.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's what I just, because we were in mistake.
Is it the same
49,
development?
yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Town.
That's it, I'm sorry.
No, that's great. For me, I got a couple of things. Obviously, now one person has put in papers. I was curious on how we are, and what you can tell me from that.
2 people for select board, Jackson and Jimmy Walker.
We have one for RSU
Oh,
16
yeah, that's
who has
right.
put in papers, and we have nobody for budget committee yet.
And the RSU 16 is
Peter Hunks,
new person.
yes.
Oh, who's that?
He's my father-in-law.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
Oh, is
think
that your
he'll be a
husband?
great fit.
Oh, is your father-in-law?
I mean,
Uh,
my father-in-law.
That was your husband? I didn't know his name, first name.
Mr.
Mr.
And the other thing I want to bring up with Lisa is the cost sharing. We held a meeting last week. It was our 3rd meeting that we had held. And all I can announce right now, but I'm not going to get into the specifics intentionally, is there will be a warrant article that will be on our election for June 10th to make a change to the funding formula share for the part of the budget, which is 17% of the school budget that gets shared by this costing formula. So more to come with that, with details, probably our next meeting. I can say might be able to announce those details because the information in the warrant articles will be probably pretty much known and in place to do, and then we can get out there and advertise it and understand. I just wanted to give you guys an update to that.
It's not that it's any big secrets, we just want to make sure that we are consistent with the wording and how we present the information to the 3 communities, that's all.
And the intent is that it won't get announced in the other 2 communities until we're to that same point. So, but there is one coming, and that's always positive.
Yep.
Marianne?
The only thing I wanted to mention is more of a reminder for those in this room that there's, the next CEDC working group is next Wednesday, the 9th at 6 o'clock.
Is it 6? Yeah, 6.
6
Yeah.
o'clock. Do you know if anyone from the town administrative team?
No, not yet. We haven't talked to anybody about that yet.
The last one went really well. It was good conversations.
Yeah.
That's all I
Nothing.
had.
Lisa?
I'm all set, I don't have anything.
Oh, Paul.
I've said enough.
All right.
That's just the fire.
So I will, at this point, nobody has anything else, I will entertain a motion to go into executive session for a personnel matter, and we will sign off on our Zoom and other aspects of this, and
Do I need special wording?
Nope, just say for personnel matter.
I make a motion that we go into executive session for a personnel matter.
I second that.
great,
John DeSantis.
Yes.
Stan Tetman.
Yes.
Steve Robinson.
yes.
Marianne Hawks.
Yes.
Lisa Elby.
Yes.
With a vote of 5-0, you have approved going into executive session for a personnel matter at 8:20 PM.
And even though this is April Fool's, it's not been a fool.
Have a good night.